ready. Limber up. You know.
Yeah. Got to do warm-ups, haven't you?
Zombieland, what's it? Rule number 1, limber up.
Yeah, that's absolutely going in the A roll at the start.
Hello and welcome to Chinballs Gaming. I am scawp, and today I'm joined by Prox for what is episode 7, which is March's podcast. Okay, we missed it. Yeah, we missed it. We've dropped the ball, but it's better than the usual bi-yearly schedule.
At least we've only missed. Yeah, we've only missed it by a couple of days. I think our viewer / listener will be kind to us. It's fine.
It will. Our viewer, listener, yes. So, and today we will be talking about emulation and Yuzu and Nintendo do what Nintendo want to do. I might cut that out. I won't. But first, Mr. Prox, what have you been playing? I'm going to ask you this first this week.
Mr. Scawp, before we get into that, I'd just like to say that is a fetching headwear that you're wearing.
This is my brand new
this old thing
embroidered Chinballs Gaming cap with the Chinballs Gaming logo, and yes, it's available now on our merch store, and I expect to sell exactly one. This one, it's sold it to me, to myself. Yeah, to me. Yeah, I just wanted a hat for myself, so. Apparently, the YouTube algorithm likes it when you've got it on your store on your YouTube page. So I thought, that's it. I'll leave it there. So anyway,
and a T-shirt
as well. And a T-shirt, yeah, my mega T-shirt. It's mega.
It is mega.
It's a very big mega drive. It's not a mega drive. Sorry, it's a very legally distinct retro-inspired pixel art of a foregone mega console
system
of the past. Yeah, theoretical console.
Anyway, I thought we were never going to get a natural segue into that, so I just thought let's just be shills and just sell the merch in the first instance. Perfect.
Thank you.
Oh, what have I been playing?
Sorry, just speaking of Mega Drives, I have to show this.
Yeah. No, you're allowed to show that. That is a Mega Drive. Musical interlude.
It is, but it's one that I tried to customize when I was a wee child.
Oh.
And it's a bit silver, but the painting's really bad. But the LED is blue. I changed the LED from a red LED to a blue LED, but it's so bright that it illuminates the entire room.
Did you need to upgrade the power supply for the blue LED?
I did not. I probably maybe I should have done. Yes.
Yeah. You'll be fine. It's probably losing some resistance somewhere in there, though, or something.
It's fine.
Electronic, some electric words.
It's fine. I've got 10. I've got 10 spare ones, so
exactly.
It's fine.
if the badly painted silver one goes, it's okay.
Yeah,
we can get another one.
Yeah, just
pull one out of the pile.
Yeah. So what have you been playing?
What have I been playing? I bought Millennia. We mentioned it in last month's podcast. I played it in the Next Fest and said it's either going to be a 4 out of 10 game or a 10 out of 10 game. I'm going to revise that. It's either a 2 out of 10 game or an 8 out of 10 game.
Ooh.
I can't work it out. I'm still not sure. So I watched a long play by excellent 4X streamer Potato McWhiskey. He doesn't need the shout outs on this channel. He's got millions of followers, but he's a very good 4X gamer. And by that I mean he knows how to play 4X games. He knows how to explain mechanics. And the long play he played, I was like, I'm into this. I can play this. I get it. I get what you're doing there, old McWhiskey. And then I bought it, and honestly, I'm just as lost as I was in the demo. I've played a lot of 4X games, as you know.
So just to interrupt, for those listening / watching, 4X game is 4 different time periods, right? I only learned this last week. No, it's not. It stands for expand, exploit, expand, exploit, explore, and exterminate. There you go. See, I always assumed that it meant because you went through 4 different ages of the civilization.
No, so it's not always a civilization game. It's like it could be in space, it could be anything. It's the idea of taking something small and then exploring out, expanding out, exploiting what you see, and then exterminating others. But yeah, anyway, it's a turn-based one of them. And it's like Civilization, but it's not Civilization, which some of the commenters in the Steam reviews can't get their heads around.
That's a lot of criticism I've seen on the Steam reviews is that this is not Civilization. Well, yeah, it's not. It's not
That's
Civilization.
correct. It's not. It's a different game. It's called something different. It has different mechanics. Admittedly, a lot of the mechanics are very similar, so people will look at that and go, well, they've taken so much of Civ that they've just not done Civ, which they haven't. No, they haven't. Anyway, by the by, I watched the long play. I thought, it's great. I get this. And then I played it and I just don't get it. And I've played a lot of these games. And I just cannot wrap my little smooth brain around this one. There's so much going on. I've yet to complete a playthrough. I've tried playing it on the easiest difficulty level, which I've never done in even Civilization. And I just... there's just a lot to it. And every time I think, going, well, here, this is fun. And it has got some good mechanics. I end up doing something that apparently means I've lost it. I lost my... I created, I was the United Kingdom, and the Civs have no sort of bonuses whatsoever. It's just a label. Your bonuses are based on where you settle and the kind of things, and it is quite... You do evolve with the game, which is quite different to any other game like that. So in Civilization, if you pick England, you can't pick United Kingdom, but if you pick England, they're really good at seafaring, and they're really good at... English things. I can't even remember. It's been that long since I played Civ. Yeah, drinking tea. But in this one, say you end up next to lots of hunting animals type things, you might specialise in hunting, and you won't know that until you start playing the game. So in that sense, it's quite good. But anyway, as the United Kingdom, I'd set up a few different little regions, as they call it, and I've got a mega London. Did call it London. It was my first city. It was my capital. Got it up, huge, massive thing. And then it declared independence on me, and then I lost it. And I was just like, I don't understand how that's happened or why that's happened. So there's definitely a learning curve to this game.
And will you persist?
So we'll see how it goes, basically.
But not enough to throw in the towel yet. Not enough to say, this game's rubbish. I've had enough.
No, but I say that, but realistically, that is what I've done, because every time I've done this, I've then gone back and played more Balatro and just enjoyed that instead.
Everyone's loving the Balatro at the moment. Since you first mentioned it to me, then that was the first time hearing of it, or the slight inklings everywhere. But now it's just exploded everywhere. Everyone's playing it.
Yeah, well, like I said last time out, it sold 250,000 in its first week, so that's not chicken feed numbers, is it? That's a major title by any sort of metric. So yeah, it's an explosion. It's still ace. It's still very random and it's still quite difficult, but I think anyone can have a good game with it and enjoy it. Even for like one playthrough, you'd probably enjoy one playthrough no matter who you are. What about you, Scott? What you been playing?
Well, last time, just after we did our last podcast, you challenged me to play Cocoon and said that we would both play this together and then we would talk about it together. So how did your playthrough of Cocoon go?
It was non-existent. I failed. I just never fancied it. And I'll be honest, you played it first and told me what you thought of it. And I
did. Yeah.
Might hold off on that one.
So if people listening have not known Cocoon, it won several Game of the Year awards and innovation awards, etc., etc. It was made by one of my favorite studios, or ex-devs from my favorite studio who made Inside and Limbo. And while I thought the puzzles were often unique, I mostly found it quite linear and not challenging. And sometimes I felt it was just a bit too repetitive, and there'd be a part where you'd look at what needs doing, and you're like, okay, I need to get this bit here and here and here. And once you figure that out, it's like, cool, done it. And then you come to another place, and it's basically the same problem. Like, oh, do I really have to do that again? Do I really need to jump through several different orbs just to get it over to the side where I can't currently get it? Because I've done this already, and I can't be bothered to do it again. But I persisted. I got a long way through it, I think, or a fair bit through it. And then I lost one of my orbs, because this thing, you've got a world, you jump into the world, you do the puzzles in the world, then you jump out of the world, and you carry the world with you. And one of these worlds, I randomly lost it somewhere, just completely misplaced it, and I'm like, oh, crap. Looked everywhere for it, couldn't find it, so I'm going to have to reload a save, or I'm just going to give up. And then when I went to reload the save, The last save point was at 99% completed. Like, okay, I suppose I best finish it then if I'm so close to the damn end. But it wasn't captivating me so much. It was all right. But
Do you think that's just because you're a smart boy these days, that you've got a bit of a brain on you?
maybe, I don't know. I know it sounds very sort of condescending, right? But it might be that it was just didn't feel challenging at all, and puzzles weren't unique enough. I did like the boss battles, surprisingly, because other people have told me that they didn't like the boss battles, and they were my favorite part, quite honestly, because they were a bit more challenging and weren't just. I think that's probably because that makes it more my kind of game. Is like I'm more about the having a skill in a game rather than solving a puzzle. So the puzzle solving side, I just thought was just too linear and too easy. Whereas the boss battles, you had to have some dexterity, and that's what I like in a game. This is why I like Super Meat Boy and these kind of games. But yeah, it didn't captivate me. And when it was over, there was a lot of like side achievements that I'd not got, and I'm not interested in going back and getting these. But it's fine. But another game I played, which was also made by some Inside and Limbo developers, was Somerville, which I'm still playing it, and that is much more similar to Inside and Limbo, and it's more sort of, I would compare it to Super Mario 3D Land. It's the Super Mario 3D Land equivalent of Inside, if you know what I mean. Is that it's not quite 3D, but it's in sort of a semi
stacked.
Yeah, it's sort of like that, and it plays a layered sort of Inside and Limbo, and the story is more into what I like. It's a bit of a mystery. There's aliens and things like this. My main problem with it at the moment is that I started it on Xbox, and it's one of these games that forces letterboxing. It forces what's the word? I forgot. Ultra wide.
That is letterbox.
So
ultra wide,
ultra wide, right? Yeah. So it forces letterbox, and because I've got a ultra wide monitor, I had letterboxes and then pillar boxes, so it was tiny in that screen. So then I thought, oh well, no problem. I'll just switch to my PC, and switch my PC so that it was in full screen rather just in the middle. Like, yes, good times. But it runs so terribly on PC. It's distracting. There's just random flashing, like the graphics glitch out, the audio crunches and glitches out, and you need to restart your PC to make it work again. And I'm like, this game's over 2 years old. These things are never getting fixed, are they? And they're just so distracting. And it's constantly one of these games where you're thinking, is the screen flickering, or is it meant to be flickering, or is it my graphics card drivers that are wrong, or is it my virtual refresh rate wrong? And I'm constantly checking the settings to make sure it's right, and it's so just taking me out of the immersion. It's just too distracting. But playing it in that little small window on your screen is annoying, and it's also really annoying to play on the deck as well, because again, it's got these letterboxing. So if it worked properly, I think I would really enjoy it. But at the moment, it's just very hard to get immersed in the world because of all the little bugs. But I will persist, I think. It's quite nice.
So the game itself is probably quality. The 2-year-old crummy PC build is less so.
Yes.
And the optimization for playing on a super wide is just, well, it's not optimized, is it?
No.
So
no.
So you've got plenty of games within the game there. They're probably more difficult puzzles to solve than the ones in Cocoon by the sound of things.
Yes, yeah.
But
going to my drivers, change one setting, see if that works. Do a frame rate cap. That doesn't work. All right, restart.
Good God. Yeah. You'd think by 2024, you really would think that those kind of things that we've been doing since the mid-90s, they might be less and less, but it's good to see that that's alive and well in 2024.
Yeah. And other than that, not a lot really, just more casual things on the old Game Pass. So I've been playing Plate Up, which is a Overcooked. Do you know Overcooked?
Yeah, I've played Overcooked.
It's you'll not believe this, right? It's a roguelike version of Overcooked, which I've been playing online with one of our fellow Chinballians, and I'm enjoying it because I'm playing it with someone else. But it is annoying me that things are locked until you die, and then have to unlock them. And I just
You're
don't
no
like.
fan of a roguelike,
I
are
can't
you?
stand them. I just want all the stuff unlocked straight away and just have it all based
Yeah.
on my skill, not not
Yeah.
just making me slightly incrementally better every time I play it. It's like, oh, here, you've now unlocked this, which will make you 10% faster. It's like, well, I'm not getting any better then, am I? I'm just getting better things. That doesn't make
Yeah.
me better at the game.
Yeah, I find roguelikes a bit weird in that regard sometimes, where the power-ups you get actually just make your base of skills better, like that, getting faster speed or a faster weapon or a more powerful weapon. It's like they're not the unlocks that you want to be getting. You want to be getting ones that completely transform your play style. Hades is super good for that because you do it with the sword, but then you get a shield as your next power up, and it's a totally different way of playing it because you can no longer run in and get people close. You've got to get them from afar, or you've got to do counters and things like that. So yeah, it's bow and arrow you get, not a shield rather.
I did try Hades. Someone, I was at somebody's house and they let me play Hades from a fresh save, and I realized something weird was going on straight away because I was going through the game, obviously with the base level, and it was obviously trying to make me die. But I was doing some really good dodge rolls and stuff and didn't die for a long time. And like, my health's slowly chipping away and it's not regenerating. I'm probably supposed to die. But anyway, I got pretty decent way through it, I think. And obviously not nowhere near like the end or anything like that. And then I died and then got back to the beginning. Like, I don't really want to play this anymore now. To be honest, I don't want to go back through all them same dungeons.
It beat your enthusiasm out of you because of your skill play. All right, fair enough. I mean, for us mortals who play these games and play it the way that you I guess you're intended to play it, it's incredibly satisfying building up those things. My partner, she's done several clear runs of Hades, perfect runs now at this point. Yeah, so very much looking forward to the sequel. But anyway, there we go. That's what we've played, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, other than some testing of old stuff. So,
Did I see something interesting on YouTube the other day that you were doing with an Amiga?
I've got lots of things I'm doing with Amiga. I don't think it was on YouTube, but I've just recently bought.
I saw a short. I'm sorry, I saw a short.
Possibly, I don't know. I can't keep up.
All right. Well, I was trying to cross sell your
I've got something in the works for my Amigas. I have just bought some expansion cards and extra RAMs and some stuff. So I will have a video coming up because I desperately been wanting to upgrade my Amiga 1200 for a long time. So I've got some RAM, got a new compact flash SSD for the hard drive, USB keyboard, USB mouse, and you might see just in the corner there's a Commodore 1084S monitor, and so I've got a VGA cable for that coming as well, so I can play in some sweet CRT glory.
That's cool. You see, that's cool. That's not stuff you can get on emulators, is it?
Exactly. And speaking of emulators, see what you did there, Prox? Ooh, sneaky. So, Yuzu. Let's talk about Yuzu and Nintendo. Well, it's gone. Did you have Yuzu on your deck?
I did, and apparently I still have it, according to my install of EmuDeck. It's the app image was not removed. It was just it won't be updated anymore.
I see. Yeah. So yeah, it's really big news.
For Citra.
Citra, the DS emulator.
3DS, yeah. Which same. It was the Citra devs, and then they started doing Yuzu after that. But yeah, and I have seen on there are alternate forks on GitHub, which probably will get taken down, but it's also on peer-to-peer versions of Git, which won't. So it's existing in this crazy Schrödinger state of it exists, but it can't really thrive anymore. It won't be developed anymore, I guess, or at least not by the same team, or at least not by the same team with the same people, with the same names attached to them and things like that.
That's a weird want to be sued for another, was it 2.4 million that they settled?
A lot of money, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I say it's a lot of money for individuals. It's not a lot of money for Nintendo, but it's a lot of money for the people behind an open source emulator. So for those who are unaware, Yuzu was a Nintendo Switch emulator in software, which you could install on a variety of devices, not least of which is Steam Deck, and also on the Switch itself, weirdly, if you are that way inclined. Yeah. So weird video of somebody running Yuzu on a Switch, on a homebrew sort of enabled Switch. And what's really mind-blowing is performance is better through Yuzu on emulation on a Switch than on the same Switch. So, like, they did this comparison of Minecraft being... I'm not withholding credit on purpose. I just can't remember who it was. Yeah, they did like Minecraft, and like the field, the fog of war, the distance
field of view.
drawing, distance draw, whatever it's called. Yeah. It was way. Well, it was basically non-existent in emulation.
Right.
So emulation's great, right? That's what that tells me.
It can be. Yeah. I mean, when this story originally broke, and we were having private discussions about these, I was very angry at the time with Nintendo's stance. My opinion of what happened has changed somewhat since I've read a little further into it, and now I'm just confused. So basically, yeah, the Yuzu, the company who, I forgot what the company's called, but let's just call them Yuzu.
Citra was a company.
Yeah, they quickly settled, and what people are thinking, why would you do that? Why haven't you just gone to court and try to fight this? But because Nintendo wanted certain information, the discovery phase of a court case. Just before we talk further about this, is we are not lawyers. We don't know anything about law in the United States or in any other country whatsoever. So we are just two men talking stuff. I'm going to try not to swear because I get told off by YouTube for swearing. So, but the reason, from what I can gather, is the reason they quickly settled with the 2.4 million is because they didn't want Nintendo seeing what Nintendo wanted to see, like all the Discord logs of what they've ever talked about, how they came to possess an early copy of the new Zelda game and crack it before it was released, and all these little bits. And basically they've gone to a lawyer and said, okay, Nintendo are suing us and they want these things from us. And then the lawyer's gone, you are absolutely and says, settle as soon as you have to give those things.
You've got to give it. If it's pertinent to the case, you've got to give it. I don't know much about law, but I know that much. So
basically the main thing comes down to is how they got the early copies of Zelda and how they managed to crack the encryption keys of Nintendo's file system. So that seems to be the two major things Nintendo was specifically going for. They weren't going for the emulator itself, just for those two particular things. But of course, Nintendo wanted to shut down the emulator, and that's how they got
and send a message, isn't it? It send a message, and I think it's what really irks me about this thing, and it probably doesn't irk many other people, or at least not to the same extent, is that it's taken down emulation of the 3DS as a result of this. The 3DS as a system now exists only if you have the hardware. The eShop's gone, so you've got no chance on that anymore, unless you've got a modded 3DS. There's no way of you getting any additional content for that anymore. And for me, the 3DS is a system which deserves to keep going for many generations, and now it won't, or at least it won't by the Citra team. And that upsets me because that system is basically a dead system at this point. 3DS is not in active sale anywhere, right? The Switch, I think, is a slightly different thing in that it is an active system. It's a current generation system. the successor to the Switch is merely heavily speculated about. It's not even announced officially yet. So, doing it for a current generation system, that's a different ballpark, and basically that's the vector they've gone for, isn't it? It's you've stopped people, or you've made it so that the most anticipated game for our system has been leaked early and available to play by an audience of people who now won't buy it. And that's the line, isn't it? And that's why. And do you know what? I'm not against. I think Nintendo heavy-handed when it comes to old consoles and things like that. Sometimes, although it seems they've. I don't know. I don't really want to comment legally on too much of the stuff. But as a consumer, I guess if it's a dead system, don't go after it. But if it's a current one, I'm kind of with them with the publisher on this one.
Yeah, it was a risky move, really, emulating a current live system with the only real way of getting the games to be downloading. Of course, you could dump them yourself, but only from the version 1 of the Switch, right? It was a hardware fault, which they patched in later revisions, so it's not something that everybody could do. And yeah, it's a tough one. It's because, like I say, I'm very much about game preservation, but I do tend to have
exactly that
most of my consoles. But that doesn't stop me from having things that are not emulators that are sort of. It's like, well, I've got an EverDrive from a Mega Drive, which what is that doing, right?
And you just said you buying a compact flash SD.
Exactly, yeah. But these are systems that are 20, 30, 35 years old. So
yeah.
It's kind of fair game,
quality
right?
of life improvement. That's preservation. That's preservation and making it preserved in the modern society. That's all that is for me. I think they're absolutely fair game, personally.
Yeah.
Because you can't. Discs are going to warp. You can't guarantee they're going to load. You've got to keep that aging old 1084S or whatever working, and it's great that it's working still. But it won't forever, all that type of stuff. Yeah. I think that's fine. And that is where the emulation space for me really does help with preservation, because emulation drives all these kind of things that mean that people think, oh, hang on, I'll make a tool for this old system, or I'll make an expansion board for this old system so that people can still use it. That's what I'm saying about 3DS. It's like, without all the community-led efforts, the 3DS is a dead system. If Nintendo had its way, it would be a legacy system.
But it's kind of funny, like, this also sort of came around not too long after the Google research team released a version for Citra on the Meta store.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
For the Meta Quest. So you could get Citra VR for the Meta Quest and play DS games in virtual reality. So I'm not sure if that had anything to do with it, or if just Nintendo were biding the time. But like you say, Nintendo are very heavy-handed with these kind of things, even to a point that it's I've known YouTubers who have made videos on how to do things with old Nintendo consoles like the GameCube, and Nintendo have had their lawyers take their videos down.
Mm-hmm.
And that is pretty scary, right?
Isn't it?
It's like we're technically not doing anything illegal. It's like I will admit I have dumped Wii U games, but I only did this. I did this the day Nintendo announced that the shop was shutting down, and at that point I decided that is fair game now for me to dump my ROMs from my Wii U and play them on my Steam Deck if I wanted to. So,
and I think that's a good time.
But I think companies like these need to start making clear statements on preservation. Like the PlayStation 3 games, I'm sure Sony don't really care about people emulating PS3 games these days. And if they did, then they wouldn't let like places like Digital Foundry do hour-long episodes on how PS3 emulation on the PC is so much better than a PS3. Because these people have got very good relationships with Sony. They talk to them like daily. They get new hardware from them when new hardware comes out. That would be, if they did that with Nintendo, their relationship would just be gone and they would never get a Nintendo game again. But there has to be a point. And this all sort of ties in with like copyright law and stuff that we don't know enough about. We're not lawyers again, but you know, books eventually go into public domain. So do films. It does take a hell of a long time. It's I think in the US it's
80 years or something.
after the person dies. It's 70 years after the person dies, which is like that's a long damn time. It's like games in general have only been around since like the 70s, right? So
yeah, exactly.
It's going to be waiting a long time to play Pong legally, if that's the case.
I think in today's market, where you can basically re-release a title, wrap it up with, you know, nice new UI compatible with controllers and like modern resolutions and all that kind of stuff, and people buy it. I think, you know, to then cut off what is the source of all the stuff rather than just the bits that you own. I just think it's stuff like that worries me. And like I'm probably like one of the least liberal people when it comes to like emulation and stuff like that. In terms of, I think if you've made something, you deserve to keep making money from it, as long as you want to keep making money from it. So I have more sympathy for publishers and manufacturers than probably most do. But by the same token, if you've said, I no longer want this, and somebody else does, it's like giving it to the charity shop, right? It's for me saying we've stopped doing anything with this, but we want to throw it in the bin, basically, rather than giving it to the charity shop. And I will always give stuff to the charity shop, not throw stuff in a bin, you know. Yeah. So it's that type of thing. I think people will always find it. And honestly, what they could do worse than partnering up with some of these like ROM sites and things, or at least saying, let us know the usage, let us know which titles people are seeking out. If there's a sudden resurgence for people playing title X, then that should tell them there's a market out there for people wanting to play a game like that. We should make one. You know, but then it comes down to this kind of flip side argument of, well, what's the point of making a new Zelda game, because people are just going to pirate it and they're going to play it on machines that are not ours, and they're going to make all these videos saying about how much better it is playing it on a machine that's not ours, or hacking a machine that is ours and putting it on an emulator and playing it. It's like, you know, I don't know. I do feel for them in a certain respect, and I just think that's where the line for me with emulation has to be drawn. Current systems, just if you're emulating a current system, you have to know that that's going to be at risk of being pulled at any time, and that you're going to be paying through the nose for it. And I think that's all they've done here, really.
If you are doing something like that with the current system, you should very much make sure you're doing it completely above board and have your defense watertight, which obviously Yuzu did not. So there was maybe some dodgy things going on. I can't say if they were or not, so don't take that as evidence.
Well, we'll never see that. Yeah, exactly. We'll never see the.
But this has also had, this has also had a knock-on effect of. There's been, I think, a PSP emulator on Android took themselves down. Some other emulators have done the same thing. It's going to have a knock-on effect. Look, it didn't go into court, so there's no sort of precedent being set about this. So we will never know. Really, but I guess it's going to take someone with a lot of money.
We'll never know, right?
Yeah, it's like which way would it have gone?
But it is a blow for preservation. It's definitely a blow for piracy, but it's also a blow for preservation, and that's not cool, because there are other systems. You know, you were saying there about dumping ROMs for such. We might just again a disclaimer. This is just us discussing the situation and this. There'll be no links offered to anything, and I'm not even going to say the product name in this just to be safe. But there are systems that now exist that are based around open source hardware, which you can basically buy flash carts for the Switch now, which you can load a ROM onto, and they'll play like a native cartridge in your Switch. Or you can buy a thing which will dump a cartridge, and it's not just dumping the game part of the cartridge, it's the whole unique identifier of the cartridge. So there, where you're saying about like the internals of the file system, I'm led to believe there is a device out there that will dump the whole cartridge, including the unique identifier, which potentially leaves you in a situation where I've got my cartridge here of Zelda Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. I copy it and I copy my exact cartridge, basically. But then I make 500 copies of that on these different flash cartridges, sell them out, and there's 500 people playing it off one ID. Now, that's kind of, at the moment, you can have faith that your game, well, previous to these devices being introduced, you had faith that your cartridge was yours, and it was, even if you bought it from a used store, it was still a unique copy, and Nintendo would be cool with you playing it. We might end up in a situation where there's people who get bans of some sort based on it being a duplicate of a true copy. And really, the only way to get around it would be to buy new games, which again is a blow for all sorts of things.
Yeah, so if you're, like we're saying, is if you've got the brand new, I've gone to a second-hand shop, I've picked up a game, I put it in my Nintendo banned me for playing a copied game, even though it's not, but I'm using the same ID as somebody else.
Exactly that, yeah.
Is like, who's Nintendo going to choose? They're not going to bother doing the research and finding out whose version is the copy. They're just going to ban both people because it's in their terms of services that they can do that.
Yeah, exactly. They'll just ban anyone, and potentially, so if you buy, it could be that you're buying or either way, you could be buying a copy from a used game store, and it might not be the real one. It might be a clone, basically, at this point.
Well, there's an easy way to tell that. Just lick the cartridge, and if it tastes like shite, then it's probably real.
Yes. Well, either that or I'm going to get all that. You can buy that stuff that can't you?
No, that's what they do, right? The Switch cartridges taste like crap, so children don't swallow them. I've not tried it recently, actually.
Exactly. I am. No, I mean we've all tried it, but not recently. I haven't tried it since launch day, I don't think. But like, you're going to be in this situation where what is real anymore, and if it was? I'll be honest. If it was Microsoft, I don't think they would go around banning anyone with a game of a specific ID. If it was,
I mean, they sort of tried it. If you remember, when the Xbox One was releasing, originally the Xbox One discs would have the unique code on, and you put it in your console, it installs, and then that disc is useless and can't be resold, which they had to quickly backpedal on. But Nintendo does what Nintendo wants to do. As usual.
Yeah, exactly that. I think this is it, right? So Microsoft have done some pretty boneheaded anti-consumer moves in the past, but now I've realised, let's not do that. Let's just get everyone on Game Pass. It comes back to Game Pass. It's always Game Pass. And Sony they've never really done much on that side of things. And honestly, if you think about it, of all the current manufacturers of consoles, the one that's persisted through the most generations to date is Sony, and it's also probably, I don't know, maybe Nintendo has had more piracy on it than Sony has, certainly on the handhelds, but I think every Sony console since PlayStation 1, every single one has been ripped open, and you can get mod chips and whatnot to do, and it's just been part of the thing, but Sony's still the one that sells more consoles than anyone else, so...
I think the other thing with Nintendo is their philosophy is just so different. Is that it's not about the money for Nintendo. I don't think it's more about the principle. Is that they firmly believe that they should be the only ones that can do these things with their games. They take it as a personal affront if you dare to play their games on something that isn't their platform. Whereas Sony just sort of not turn a blind eye as such, but they just try to mitigate the financial part. And once that outweighs going after people, they just stop. Whereas Nintendo will just pursue to the end of the earth anybody doing anything what they'd deem as wrong.
And it's kind of interesting because culturally, they're both Japanese companies, right? So you would think that so it's not a cultural thing, or it's not certainly not come from the country itself. It's like it literally is different ideologies in companies. Like Sony have embraced third-party accessories from day one, or at least maybe not embraced. Embraced is wrong, because I do think when PlayStation 1, I don't think they were that keen on, fake dual senses or whatever, but they've at least accepted of them. Whereas Nintendo has really found it difficult if they're not exerting control over the whole process. It is that walled garden approach, and I think a lot of it is down to family experiences and that. They don't want fake cartridges going out that are modded and that have got wangs everywhere, which is, again, let's be honest, that's the next step. You'll get a Minecraft that looks like a Minecraft, but it's not Minecraft, it's Minecraft with wangs. That's the title for this episode.
Always comes down to wangs, right?
Yeah, but and just Nintendo won't want that on their system, even if it's not their game. They won't want it on their system,
Yeah. It's a tough situation, because there's no clear cut right or wrong answer, really, is there? It depends on how you approach it. Are we talking about preservation? Are we talking about piracy? When can you emulate a game and when can't you? When is game classed as retro? Well, it's like if we say, oh, it's fine to emulate a retro game, it's like, well, how far is retro? Is it 10 years ago? Yeah. Well, if it's 10 years ago, that means PlayStation 4 games early PlayStation 4 games are retro, right? So they must be.
Well, GTA 5's retro.
You can pirate that. That's fine.
But I mean, there's no argument for saying that Tears of the Kingdom. I always get them confused in my head. There's no argument for saying Tears of the Kingdom before it came out is a retro title. So
no, you can't argue that.
I don't think there's an argument for saying that emulating a current system, a system that is still very much being sold, is ever a preservation thing. I think if you're doing it, or if you're going to build an emulator for a current generation console to get it ready for preservation, you should not allow it to run commercial ROMs or something until such time. But then how can you really stop that? You can't stop that.
You say that, and there's actually a good analog for this, and this is again mentioning the Oculus Quest, Meta Quest, Facebook Quest, whatever you want to call it. There is an application called SideQuest for this, which lets you sideload games. And originally there was quite a bit of contention with SideQuest and Meta, but in the end, I think it all came down to John Carmack, quite honestly, because he's quite an open person with these kind of things. Is they embraced it and allowed SideQuest to exist unofficially on the Meta Store and also have integration with the Meta Store itself. So you could go to the Meta Store, it would tell you information about the game and say, this is only available on SideQuest, and have like a disclaimer. And in return, SideQuest themselves started to put in blocks so you couldn't pirate games. So if you downloaded a pirated version of a full title, the SideQuest software would detect the hash or whatever and wouldn't let you install it. So the only way you can install pirated games on the Quest is if you've got a pirated, hacked version of SideQuest. So the official SideQuest doesn't let you do this, but there is obviously people that have hacked it, obviously, so you can do it. But that is quite a nice sort of compromise, I think. So I think Meta sort of thought, well, we can't really stop people doing this, and we see the benefit of allowing game developers to put demos on that we don't want on our store, basically. So Meta have done a really good job with sort of managing like the pros and cons of letting this unofficial store exist, but within their on their official headset. Like the way to get it on, you've got to go onto the Oculus site, register as a game developer, which allows you certain USB tools, and then that allows you to put SideQuest on. But Meta don't check don't check your credentials. They just ask, "Are you a developer?" And it's like,
Yeah.
"Do you want a developer account?" Yes, I swear that I'm a developer. But as far as I know, they don't ban anyone unless they're doing rampant piracy.
So that is basically because a software company has made hardware, right? And a software company know that even Facebook 10 years ago were basically trying to build the walled garden internet themselves. They've realised that in order to keep living or become more than a website, you open it up and you make APIs and you allow people to develop for your platform and make it a platform. And that's exactly what they've done by releasing the hardware. It's a software company making hardware. And the Playdate is exactly the same sort of thing. From day one, you could sideload things onto the Playdate. It has no qualms about letting you do that. It encourages you to do that. And to the point where Panic will tweet out links of games that they don't sell on the catalogue, but you can buy on itch. And they mention them in roundups and all this kind of stuff because they want people to make things for their system. Because especially in the case of Playdate, if there's no games for it, nobody's buying it, right?
Yeah, so, but I think there's also a different, it's sort of different for Playdate, is that I think they actually make money from selling the Playdate, whereas like Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox tend to make a loss on consoles. So there's that sort of.
What about Meta? How much do you reckon? What's Meta's model?
Well, the Quest 2 was sold apparently very severely underpriced, so they lost a lot of money selling the Quest 2. But it wasn't all about the getting people into the system.
Your Meta accounts.
It's like I think I bought my Quest 2 for 300 euros at the time at launch, which is nothing. And the Quest 3 is now out, and the cheapest Quest 3 is now 550. So it's increased nearly double in price from Quest 2 to Quest 3.
Okay.
So maybe they're bringing it more in line to be an actual price, but that sort of got them into the VR market. Really got them a big audience.
550 is no longer a premium price point for a console, is it? It's not 550 quid for a games device is no longer that's a life-changing amount for most people. It's a I shouldn't, but I will for most people kind of thing, isn't it?
And
so,
yeah, and just to go back, seeing as it always comes back to Game Pass, is Uncle Phil apparently told Polygon in the last few days that he's open to having other stores on the Xbox, like Epic and things like this. So, like, these walled gardens do seem to be falling down somewhat.
Tumbling one by one. But I do, really fascinating that's the thing. But I do think that is I think you think about like successful consoles in the past and things that have made consoles great, like the 360. What really made that great was opening it up to indie games and the arcade and all that kind of stuff. And it was down to having a solid developer relations strategy. And that's what Meta have done by the sound of things. It's what Playdate have done, admittedly on a much smaller scale. And I do think that's really what is lacking right now for Nintendo, is that they've never, ever... They've never prioritized a developer relations strategy. And that's why they want to hold on to the walled garden and want to keep things in. I mean, admittedly, there's a lot more non-Nintendo games on Switch than there ever was on NES, but come on, that strategy element, that idea of not just thinking about how can you develop for our Switch console right now and make sure that you do it in the confines of our Switch, but thinking about, well, how do we make this a thing that keeps on going? And Microsoft did it by putting in the cross-platform architecture and stuff so that you can still play games that from 2-3 generations back and continued. It's just an Xbox game now. It's just a different, shell and set of kit to play it in, but it's still an Xbox game. And that's where they've gone. And I think Sony have gone down the same sort of route. You look at certainly the 4.5 compatibility stuff. There's a strategy to it, whereas I just think that's what Nintendo are crying out for. So if they want to hire us as developer strategists, we'll do it for you, Nintendo. We're pretty cheap. We're northern. will help you. And what we'll tell you is set your systems up for digital preservation. Make some clear blueprints about how you'll work with developers to make your stuff open sourced after it's dead. Open source the 3DS, cut completely utterly, and work towards that, so that then emulators are not trying to do piracy because they know that there's going to be a future for preservation, and that's really what all emulation wants.
It's interesting you should raise that, and like with the PS4, with the PS5 supporting PS4, with the Xbox fully supporting. Oh man, I wish Xbox would have named their consoles in a logical order. With the series supporting all one games and maybe half of the 360 library,
a good chunk of 360s.
If that keeps continuing, then we don't need to emulate in future. Of course, we'll need to buy more hardware,
That's exactly
which is probably fine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm just thinking it aloud. But with Nintendo, if they don't make the Super Switch compatible, or whatever the new one's going to be called, then it's their own damn fault, really, if people start emulating Switch games, right?
Exactly that. When you look
people
at
want to play these games, and if you don't let us play these games, then we're going to have to take it into our own hands and play them somewhere else where we can play them. If you say, no, we're not letting you play Mario Kart unless you go to eBay and pay £160,000 for the disc.
Why is that in any interest at Nintendo?
It's not. It doesn't make them any money. It doesn't do anything, right? It's like, seriously, like Mario Kart Double Dash on eBay is like nearly €200 sometimes.
Yeah, it's insane sum of money.
That doesn't make
Nintendo
money.
Saw a copy of Animal Crossing for GameCube for over £100 the other day. Over £100. It's just crazy. I mean, I appreciate it didn't actually get released. Anyway, I'm not getting into that crap, but whatever. It's still a lot of money and it doesn't make any sense. And yeah, that's it. That's the thing, isn't it? You don't see PlayStation 4 and 5 emulators. You don't see Xbox One and Series emulators. And that's because the Xbox games all play on Windows. You don't need to worry. And because Sony are doing a decent thing of releasing their games for multiple platforms so that they'll be able to be preserved for generations to come. And what's Nintendo doing? Nintendo's saying, I'm going to shut you down because you've done this emulator and you've made it so that people can play our new Zelda game before they were supposed to.
Yeah.
Naughty.
And by the way, we're shutting down the Wii U store and the DS store, so you can never buy or play these games
exactly.
again.
Yeah, and in fact, we encouraged all these developers to release all these things only available on the eShop, which there are some absolutely cracking titles on the 3DS eShop, particularly, that only exist on the 3DS eShop. And basically, unless you're unscrupulous, you're not getting hold of them now. There's no way of legally getting them. So you're going to have to illegally get them. Sorry. And that's nonsense to me. It's nonsense. So, yeah, please, Nintendo, if you're going to do anything out of this thing, do what you want with the emulators of current systems and the people running them. I'm not against you protecting your future and all that, but your future is dependent on setting up a solid strategy for what you intend to do for preservation of games long term. Because right now, selling your virtual console subscriptions is it's not enough. Look at any emulation site. Which are the most popular ROMs on any emulation site? They're all Nintendo ones. All Nintendo ones. And that's because they're the hardest to get hold of any other way.
Yeah.
Right, we've put the world to rights. What more do you want?
We've started. We've done it. Nintendo.
Give me a call.
Give him a call. Yeah.
Give me a call. I'll be that honest. Anyone who's worked with me will tell you that's how honest I will be in the boardroom.
Right then, so let's move on to our Q&A. All right, let's see what questions we've got. Well, we didn't get any. Okay, we're done.
Next time.
You look truly shocked then. You're like, oh, did we get some? No. Yeah.
Viewer, listener.
Listener.
I mean, I'm not being funny, but we come up with some pretty controversial content on this channel, and the fact that nobody bites on any of it, well, it just shows nobody's listening. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. We do this.
We enjoy it.
Right. Well, I think we can wrap a little bow in that. There's still a lot of unanswered questions really, but we can't really answer them.
But there's
It's
next month.
Yeah, it's like, is emulation good? Is it bad? Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
There's plenty to go at, and I'm sure
Is
we will
Nintendo
revisit
Nintendo
emulation.
good? Is Nintendo bad? Yes and yes.
Yes and no.
No, yes, they are good, and yes, they are bad.
Yes,
they are heavy-handed,
That's very true.
and we love them, but we also hate them. So anyway, on that note, that's it from me.
Yeah, and that's it from me. Cheers. Thanks for having me, arse out of a scrap.
Yes, until next month of April, maybe, or May.
April.
Oh yeah. Latest.